Gang, what up? You already know what time it is, man. We're gonna get into the Bryan Kohberger case. You feel me? You already know what time it is. Red cup up. So let's go ahead and get into it. Hit that like subscribe button for your boy, man, if y'all rocking with me. Let's get it.
Of the Idaho 4, answers to the longtime mystery surrounding the 911 call, how the faces of the victims were unrecognizable. We're learning shocking new details in the murders of the Idaho 4, answers to the longtime mystery surrounding the 911 call, how the faces of the victims were unrecognizable, and
Dang.
what quadruple killer Bryan Kohberger told officers after his arrest. We're taking a look at the 15 most shocking bombshells just revealed in the Bryan Kohberger case. This is Scandal, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Sierra Gillespie.
Tight.
Before we get into those breaking details, I have to bring you a Law and Crime legal alert. Did you know that children are being diagnosed with serious conditions like type 2 diabetes and non-alcoholic fatty liver disease? And research is potentially linking ultra-processed foods to these outcomes? Well, Morgan & Morgan is deserve justice. The QR code on your screen, case of now convicted murderer Bryan Kohberger, who was sentenced in the quadruple killings that shocked the nation. We've spent literal years asking questions that seem to never have answers. What exactly happened in the deaths of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Zana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin?
Four people, dog.
What was Kohberger's motive? Why did he wait so long to take a plea deal just weeks before he was set to go to trial? With the gag order lifted, emotional victim impact statements read, and 4 consecutive life sentences handed down to Kohberger.
And I believe a gag, let me see. I think like a gag order, like they can't use. Let me look that up real quick. What's a gag order? I know what it is. I heard it before. But might be too early for me, gang. Might be too early, gang. But let me see what that is real quick, gang. Gag order. A judge ordered that the case may not be discussed. Okay, can't nobody discuss it in public. That's what it is.
For himself, we finally have some answers. Our Law and Crime team combed through every page of the court documents to bring you the latest and most shocking details. So let's start at the beginning. It was November 13th, 2022, when officers were called.
And this happened a little while back, man.
To 1122 King Road in Moscow, Idaho, not far from the University of Idaho campus. Inside the home, first responders found a gruesome scene that we're now hearing about firsthand from one of the officials first on the scene, Moscow police officer Corbin Smith.
You guys have been chosen to do Volume 2 of the vinyl giveaway.
We are still kind of in shock that we're...
Idaho.
This is straight from Smith's report, and we'll warn you, the notes about the crime scene are gruesome and disturbing. The officer said he found Zana and Ethan first, writing, quote, "When I arrived, I entered the residence and went to the second floor. I observed a female wearing a sweatshirt and underwear laying in the middle of the bedroom, floor covered in blood. I observed deep lacerations, indicative of defensive wounds on the female's hands. The female was surrounded by blood on the floor. I observed a male lying on the bed. The male appeared to have suffered from stab wounds and a laceration to the neck."
Dang. Oh, crazy with it, ain't it? What the?
The male was covered in blood, and the bedding around him was soaked in blood. After
he was there for a minute, gang.
this, Smith says he found Madison and Kaylee, quote, "In a third floor bedroom, I observed 2 females laying in bed, which appeared to have been stabbed to death. The female laying on the left half of the bed, as I looked at it from the doorway, was unrecognizable. Her face was completely disfigured and was stabbed several times.
gosh, gang. Yeah, throw buddy under the jail. What's wrong with what be wrong with people, gang?
Was unable to comprehend exactly what I was looking at while trying to discern the nature of the injuries. The second female, on the right half of the bed, had multiple stab wounds. The comforter was soaked in blood, and a pool of blood was still present.
Dang.
Another Moscow officer, Mitch Nunez, describes the same scene. According to the report, Nunez found Xana first. Now, it's written as Kaylee because at the time, Officer Nunez believed it was Kaylee. But when it says Kaylee, he really means Xana. I observed dried blood surrounding Kaylee's body and signs of cutting trauma to her face. Kaylee was covered in so much blood, I wasn't able to immediately discern where any additional injuries would have likely been. Kaylee was apparently deceased. Here's how he describes Ethan, quote, I observed blood covering portions of Ethan's legs, surrounding his body into the bed sheets, and drops of blood on the wall near Ethan's head. He describes finding Kaylee and Maddie too, quote, one...
Bro. Let me tell y'all, right? You got to be something really got to be wrong with you to stab somebody, gang. In the world today, unless you like in UK or something, that's what they do up there. But in the United States, where we have all these guns at, gang, and you stab somebody, like multiple times, gang, with a knife, gang, you know how crazy you got to be. When you could just easily just shoot a person.
Female showed an apparent traumatic injury to her face due to the basic facial structure being unrecognizable. Both females showed very pale skin. Both females were covered in dried blood and apparently deceased. Upon further reflection, officers determined that the wounds on Xana's arms, hands, and face all came from an edged weapon. The nightstand in that room had been moved and was pushed up against the wall at an odd angle. There was blood on it. Ethan was on Xana's bed in that same room laying on his back. He had a blanket pulled over his midsection and his feet were hanging off the side of the bed. Upstairs in Kaylee's room, everything was neat, except that the sheets on the bed had been pulled back, almost as if someone was laying in bed and then jumped out. In Madison's room, investigators could see two people on one bed. Both on their backs, both had noticeable stab wounds, and the officers noticed the knife sheath laying on the bed next to Madison's right side. As the early stages of the investigation began, Officer Smith was assigned security of the rear door, and that's when he noticed something in the snow. Quote, the footsteps went to and from the rear slider door. I observed the trail of footsteps head away from the slider, then turn right, around a stump in the backyard, and lead toward the front of the house. I observed a set of small handprints on the window to the east of the slider. The screen to this window appeared damaged and was laying on the ground. I located smudged fingerprints on the glass slider door. There was a discarded black backpack in the backyard. Officers on the scene also spoke with surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk. Here's what Officer Nunez writes about Dylan. And it is redacted. It says only D, but we can discern that this is Dylan Mortensen. Quote, Dee told me at approximately 0400 hours, she heard a voice scream and believe it to be Kaylee's. Dee said she heard Kaylee scream and announced there was somebody inside the residence. Dee said she could hear Kaylee run from the third floor down the stairs to the second floor in the northwest bedroom. Dee said she locked herself in her bedroom and continued to hear a commotion. Dee said eventually she stopped hearing a struggle and heard a male voice say, "You're going to be fine. I'm going to help you." Dee said she did not recognize the male's voice. Dee said after a few minutes, she peeked out of her bedroom and observed a male described as approximately 6 feet tall, slim build, with a black ski mask leave the second floor patio area.
Dang, bruh. That's crazy. I know she felt helpless because I ain't help her friends out, gang.
Officer Nunez also spoke with Bethany. She said before all of this happened, she'd been in the living room watching The Vampire Diaries. Madison and Kaylee came home after going out to the corner club and also visiting the Grub Wandering Kitchen. When they got home, B, meaning Bethany, said she and Madison let Madison's dog out, Murphy, sometime between 0200 hours and 0230 hours. B said during this time she observed no suspicious activity. B said she returned inside while Madison was still outside with Murphy. B said she went to bed around 0230 hours. B said Madison came into her bedroom sometime after 0230 hours to ask if she knew where Murphy was. B said she told Madison no, and Madison left. B said she woke up in her bedroom, which was located on the first floor, to a sound she described as a firecracker and a flash. B said she initially thought the sound was a prank. Other court documents go more in depth about all of this too. B said when she went to bed, she was using her iPad to watch a TV show off of Hulu. She said she was watching Baby Daddy. B could not remember what episode she was watching or how long she was watching. As she was watching the show, Maddie came downstairs and asked her if she had Murphy with her because she could not find him. B told her no, said her door was locked, and she normally locks her door when she goes to bed. B told me she eventually turned off the show and her iPad and went to sleep. B said she woke up after falling asleep to hearing what she felt was a firecracker go off, and she thought she saw a sparkler going off through the crack under her door. B stated she did not know what happened. Bethany showed officers she called each of the victims between 4:21 a.m. and 4:31 a.m., but never got a response. After that, she says she went to bed, saying she was drunk and groggy and thought it all was a prank. She didn't wake up until 11:56 a.m. the next morning when she called 911. And that leads us into the early days.
So how did bruh get... I mean, I'm glad he got caught, but how did they know it was him?
Days of the investigation. A phrase almost synonymous with the Kohberger case is the K-bar knife, what we now know as the murder weapon. And early on in the investigation, detectives knew that too.
Hey!
Or the ass ski. This joint is wild.
Look at me! This is how I...
In this document, you can see a long list of people who had recently purchased K-bar knives. Now, this was collected by the FBI, who were working hand in hand with the Moscow Police Department. And while we're talking about the K-bar knife, we also have to discuss the knife sheath that was left behind at the scene. This same knife sheath would later blow the case wide open when...
So that's how Buddy got caught. Yes, sir, ski. Throw him under the jail, gang. Throw him under the jail. Throw him under the jail.
DNA from that sheath was collected and tested and proved to be a match with DNA collected from Kohberger's parents' home thousands of miles away in Pennsylvania. But for a time, we the public didn't know anything about the K-bar knife sheath. That's why it's odd then when an email came in asking about the knife sheath before it was public knowledge. This next part is from an interview on December 2nd, 2022, before Kohberger's arrest. Now, the name has been redacted, but here's what happened. Quote, M stated he understood and never put his phone number on orders to prevent phone solicitation. M then abruptly asked, "What can you tell me about two feds that showed up at my door today, questioning my recent K-bar order?" J stated she did not know what M was talking about, as she had no knowledge of the investigation. M then stated something to the effect of, "You know a K-bar sheath was left at the scene?" J stated she did not know anything about the situation and asked M if he wanted to complete his order. M stated he was a collector and had enough for now. He also added he better hold off until things die down a little. M then ended the phone call. Speaking of phones, these are obviously very important in a case like this. Investigators got warrants for phones of the victims and, of course, Kohberger, and they got access to information like Kaylee's Tinder, Madison's Tinder, and even Kohberger himself's Tinder. But honestly, we learned a bit more about Kohberger from his discussions with police. Now, for those of you following this case from day one, you know there were weeks before...
Anybody that look like that, gang, you gotta be, hey, what he on, gang?
Before anyone was arrested.
What he on?
And it was a shock when an arrest came too.
Oh, that's the...
Bryan...
They put a bulletproof vest on him?
Kohberger was arrested on the literal other side of the country than Moscow, Idaho, at his family's home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania. We later learned he was studying criminal justice in Washington State, just a short drive away from the University of Idaho. Kohberger was arrested on December 30th, 2022, and now we have some major details about his first conversation with police. It started as police read Kohberger his Miranda rights, and then, after collecting Kohberger's personal information and inquiring about medications, Detective Gilbertson and I began to speak to Kohberger. Detective Gilbertson asked Kohberger about the SWAT operation at the house, to which Kohberger replied he was concerned about his parents and his dog. After that, the detectives and Kohberger made small talk. Kohberger said he went to Washington State University.
Hey. That's what they tell you in the Miranda rights. They basically say you got the right to shut up. You feel me? But he didn't do that. Police ain't gonna get you off, gang. Only the judge will. Not telling y'all to do nothing crazy, but that's just the law, you feel me?
But he wasn't a big sports fan. And then they talked about Kohberger's contentious field of study. Quote, Kohberger then spoke about how he became interested in criminal justice and stated he thought about being a police officer, but did not want to make that commitment unless he was absolutely...
Nah, we glad you ain't a police officer, gang. We overly glad, gang.
Sure. This carried on for a while. They discussed everything from Kohberger's life in the Pacific Northwest to his road trip with his dad back to Pennsylvania, and even talk about the weather. And then Kohberger himself demanded some answers. Kohberger then stated he understood why we were engaging in small talk, but would appreciate it if we explained to him what he was doing there. Detective Gilbertson asked Kohberger why he thought he was there. He said he wanted Detective Gilbertson to tell him. Detective Gilbertson said we're there because of what occurred in Moscow, but did not provide any further detail. Detective Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he watched the news. Kohberger said, I watched the news. Detective Gilbertson then asked Kohberger why he thought I looked familiar. Kohberger said he wasn't sure and stated I had a familiar face and looked like someone he used to know. Detective Gilbertson then said we were there because of what happened in November, just off the University of Idaho campus. Detective Gilbertson asked Kohberger if he knew what that was, to which Kohberger replied, of course. When prompted to elaborate, Kohberger said it was the incident we had been investigating for how long has it been? Kohberger said there were probably several incidents, and then said he was aware of a homicide because of a WSU alert he received. Detective Gilbertson asked when Kohberger received the alert. Kohberger said he wasn't sure, but thought it was sometime the previous month. Detective Gilbertson confirmed that was why we were there and asked if Kohberger wanted to talk about that. Kohberger replied, well, I think I would need a lawyer.
He basically just said he did it without saying he did it, gang. What you need a lawyer for if you ain't do nothing?
Kohberger then asked if we would explain to him what we were there for specifically and added he was tired. Detective Gilbertson again stated we were investigating the homicides of 4 students and that we had questions and things we hoped Kohberger would help us understand.
But my thing is, because he went to school at the same school they went to, did he see them at school and try to get up with them? That's my thing.
But with that, as Kohberger indicated, he wanted an attorney, so the interview abruptly stopped. Now, since his arrest, Bryan Kohberger has been housed in the Latah County Jail, and we're learning more about what fellow inmates have to say about Kohberger as well. According to these newly released court documents, an inmate whose name has been redacted from the court documents mentioned Kohberger after an inmate transport. Quote, during their conversation, Redacted stated he was housed in max, or maximum security, to which Redacted replied, oh, were you in there with Kohberger? Redacted stated he was. Redacted asked, how is he? Redacted stated, a effing weirdo.
I told you look like a weirdo, gang. I said that from the first joint. For real.
Redacted continued to say if he wasn't worried about further legal repercussions, he would have physically assaulted Kohberger.
Dang. I be in them jails, gang. Y'all going there doing stuff to little kids. They ain't them take them niggas in jail gonna be cool with that, bro. They don't be going for that. They do not be going. Hey, if they can't get you on the outside, they gonna get you in the inside for sure.
Redacted then asked if Kohberger did it, referencing the homicides. Redacted affirmed this statement and added he had pretty good judgment of people and that his, Kohberger's, eyes tell a story. Just weeks before he was set to go to trial, Bryan Kohberger changed his plea. He's since pleaded guilty to the murders of Madison Mogen, Kaylee Gonzalez, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. He was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences. And that
Meaning Buddy ain't never getting out.
was just the tip of the iceberg in terms of new information in this case. The Law and Crime team will be hard at work in the coming days, bringing you all the latest details. So to make sure you don't miss any updates, subscribe to our Scandal channel at Scandalous News and send tips our way to
Tight shit. You feel me? Throw him under the jail. He gonna be there for life. You feel me? Like that. We gone.